Hello from Westminster in London. This is the Standard Podcast. I'm political editor Nicholas Cecil.
I'm deputy political editor Jitendra Joshi.
I'm chief political correspondent Rachael Burford. And this is A Week's a Long Time in Westminster. Right, so there's a lot to catch up on since the election results day, especially across the pond. So let's get into it, shall we?
Well, so at the start of the week, it was very much the big reset. So we had Chancellor Rachael giving a speech on the economy, and she had a very clear message to the world that basically Britain is open for business.
Growth requires hard choices, choices that previous governments have shied away from. And it now falls to this new Labour government to fix the foundations. There is no time to waste. We have promised a new approach to growth, one fit for a changed world. That approach will rest on three pillars: stability, investment, and reform.
There's been lots of instability, political and economic, and she's saying, here, stability, come and invest in Britain. There is also a foreign affairs reset in terms of reaching out to countries around the world saying, we've moved on from Brexit, you can do business with a stable British government again. There's also a reset with the mayors, so there's been lots of infighting, clashes between the government and the Mayor of London, for example, Sadiq Khan. And Keir had all the mayors into Downing Street, including Tory Mayor Lord Houchin from the Tees Valley, and saying, I want to do business with all of you, basically.
I'm a great believer in devolution. I'm a great believer in the idea that those with skin in the game, those that know their communities, make much better decisions than people sitting in Westminster and Whitehall. I know you already have, many of you, growth plans in place. Some of you have shared them. That is fantastic. But what we want to do is to build on that with a real partnership where you feel that the government is up alongside you, supporting what you're doing and working with you to achieve what you want to achieve.
You're really thrown into it, aren't you? First week in the job, he was straight off to NATO, so he's flown out to Washington to meet Joe Biden. Obviously, he was pressed on certain things that are going to be facing his administration and the new Labour government pretty quickly. One of those things is immigration, the small boats crisis, which is quite interesting. I think we've had another horrendous tragedy in the Channel on Friday morning. 4 people died off the coast of northern France, 63 rescued. Hundreds have come on small boats into Britain already in the last week. I think 14,000 this year, over 14,000 people have come. Sort of record numbers we're seeing come over now.
Certainly we know the Rwanda scheme didn't work, but is Labour going to do any better?
Well, that's the thing. So what's really interesting about Keir Starmer's comments at NATO was he refused to say, we'll stop the boats. He's sort of not peddling the line that his predecessor, Rishi Sunak, was, that, we'll definitely stop the boats, we'll stop these people coming. And he did admit, this is probably going to get worse before it gets better. We've got a border force command. They're hoping to have the leader in place for that in the coming weeks. And that Cooper is sort of looking for the leader for this new command centre they're setting up that they're hoping will help smash these human trafficking gangs and basically stop people coming across. But it's going to be very, very difficult. It's a big problem.
Yes, generally I think Keir had a good week in Washington, certainly better than some other people did.
Well, and this happened.
And now I want to hand it over to the president of Ukraine, who has as much courage as he has determination. Ladies and gentlemen, President Putin.
Yes, so Keir's week in Washington was dominated really by Joe's woes in the White House. We've seen the president not doing himself any favours when he already was on the back foot after a pretty calamitous debate performance against Donald Trump. Just in the last few hours as we record, he's given a news conference to conclude the NATO summit and also held an event with all the other NATO leaders, including Keir Starmer and the president of Ukraine. So it's reignited a whole new round of questioning, doubts, open revolt, even from nearly 20 now Democratic members of the Congress in the House and the Senate to say, look, time is running very short. We really can't stumble into a November election with this situation.
But what can happen now? What can the Democrats do?
Ultimately, it really comes down to what does Joe Biden want? Does he want to stick to his guns? If he does, there's very little the party can do other than having outright open civil war at a very damaging period of time with just a few months to go now before the November election. So that really is the discussion that's going on quietly in the background. How do we persuade this stalwart servant of the party? The game is up now.
But there's been a lot of backers and donors now, notably people like George Clooney, who's
Yes.
raised millions and millions for the Democratic Party. Even they're saying this can't go on anymore. He's got to step down, really.
Exactly, and it's a truism in American politics. You have to follow the money. These things are very, very expensive to run election campaigns. If the money's not coming in, and by all accounts, that flow is started to really slow down, you're going to struggle anyway.
So who replaces him?
Right, okay, well, there's the question. So Kamala Harris is as vice president, is next in line constitutionally if there's an issue with the president, but also in terms of democratic legitimacy, having gone through the nominating process with Joe Biden, she's the only person that anyone's actually voted for. Equally, however, she's not that popular, and a lot of Democrats are worried that Donald Trump might have her for toast in the election.
There's a slight danger here, though, for Donald Trump as well, isn't there? Because if Joe Biden pulls out the race, then he becomes the old man in the race.
Exactly.
And
everyone talks about we've got an 81-year-old president, he's the oldest ever, but we've also got a 78-year-old challenger. And actually, Donald Trump, he's got plenty of baggage of his own, and he's kind of managed to coast through this campaign so far without any real serious scrutiny, to the extent that he's happy to take a lot of time out on the golf course and let Joe Biden, his campaign, destroy itself.
And turning briefly back to Britain, there's another leadership contest underway, the Tories, and there's very much a battle for the heart and soul of the party. There was an interesting intervention by the former mayor of the West Midlands, Andy Street, where he really took on the right of the party, saying, if you think that you can win election by going to the right to take on Nigel Farage's reform, he was just saying that's absolutely mad. And he was absolutely scathing about the idea about Farage taking over as Tory leader.
Don't do a Trump, in other words. Don't let the Tory party become what the Republicans have become.
Yes, I think he actually may have said that sort of phrase as well. Or William Hague, I think, said that phrase this week. I think that no one has officially launched their campaign yet to become the next Tory leader, but obviously a few people have already soft launched, let's say, particularly, Suella Braverman, Kemi Badenoch and Robert Jenrick, who were already sort of, getting people publicly coming out for them. Priti Patel's an interesting one as well. Her Instagram account has very much bumped up to suggest she is very much running to be the next Tory leader. But no one has officially come out yet, and they've got a real choice whether they go left, right, or try and stay in the centre ground.
They've also got a question about the timing, how long they go for this leadership contest, because certainly some people argue if you go long, then that gives you more time to come back to the centre ground. Other people think you can't have 3, 4, 5 months of basically should Farage be our leader or not.
The worry they have is that the longer it goes on, while that gives the party space to try and figure out where it wants to go next, that gives Labour a free ride. And they're worried that they could suffer what George Osborne and David Cameron did to Labour in 2010, when similarly there was a drawn-out process in the Labour Party, and the new Tory government was able to dominate the narrative for months.
Right, let's go to a quick ad break.
Coming up, over 300 new MPs, who's who, plus it's coming home, hopefully. We'll talk about the London fan zone and a trip to Berlin.
So welcome back. Parliament's been really sleepy during the election campaign. Everyone's been out and about campaigning. But in recent days, there's a massive buzz back because there are more than 300 new MPs getting to learn how Parliament works, and a lot of them having to hot desk at the moment because they haven't got offices. So it's quite chaotic scenes.
Yes, and we saw the traditional swearing in where every new MP comes in, and that gave rise to some interesting little storylines. We saw MPs swearing on the Bible by tradition, but also on Hindu and the Muslim holy books, as well as some refusing outright to swear allegiance to the king and inserting their own protest language, or speaking in Cornish or Scots Gaelic and so on. So it's a fascinating insight to to this process.
Yeah, it's been really nice actually. There's been a lot of first-time MPs. Obviously, we've got 100, I think a record number of first-time MPs this time. And a lot of them have been bringing their family in. I saw one downstairs yesterday. She brought her kids in. Her parents were in with her as well. And it was really nice to sort of, obviously really, it's a very proud thing, I think, to become an MP.
And of course, the star of the week was the guide dog.
Jenny.
Jenny, the guide dog, yes.
And all the MPs get a new guide, a big thick book about what to do and how Parliament works. And one interesting element of it is it explains that if you end up going to the wrong lobby to vote, and you want to kind of rectify that, basically what they're told to do is actually then vote in the lobby that you don't want to be in, then dash around to the other lobby and vote the other way, and therefore you annul your vote. There's actually another way to get around that, which they'll learn bit by bit, is that there's a secret toilet as well. So if you're in one of the lobbies and you're in the wrong place, you can dash into the toilet, close the door and hide and there wait for the proceedings to finish and then come back out, and you will not have voted.
And well, that's not the only routing that MPs are having to learn. Another one is the correct entry point for one of the restaurant points, where if you miss your tray at the beginning, you're meant to go all the way around to the beginning to avoid annoying everyone by bashing your way back through the queue. And we've seen a fair number of MPs falling foul of that this week.
And they'll be learning one of the crucial rules of the House of Commons is be nice to the cafeteria staff, because they decide on the size of your portions.
Absolutely.
So any rudeness can be swiftly punished. So the first thing all the MPs did was to elect the Speaker, which was getting Sir Lindsay Hoyle re-elected. And then we heard some very interesting speeches afterwards.
Yes, so Sir Edward Lee, as Father of the House, organised that election. And then we heard from the Mother of the House, the longest-serving female MP, who's Diane Abbott from our patch in London, and she was first elected in 1987. She gave quite a moving speech, actually, quite emotional speech, reflecting on the changes that she has seen, going from, I think it was 46 female MPs when she was first elected to well over 200 now. The increased ethnic diversity in the House, it's unrecognisable really from the 80s.
And it was all the more poignant because Labour chiefs had tried to stop her being an MP, so she won that battle, and therefore she was back in the Commons and very much was one of the stars of the show.
Absolutely, it's a sort of sign of the speed at which politics moves. That a few weeks ago everyone was at loggerheads and daggers drawn on between her and the Labour High Command, and now it's all sweetness and light again.
Well, she maybe felt she was coming home, but there's something else which hopefully we'll think is coming home.
Nicely done.
Nicely done, yeah, smooth, Nick. Yes, football, obviously we can't not talk about the football, which is in Germany, obviously. Keir Starmer going out there, along with Lisa Nandy, the new Culture Secretary.
She's one of the luckiest Secretaries of State going, right? Because she wasn't meant to be in that role. And
no.
Now, so Thangam Debonair lost her election in Bristol, so she had the role in the shadow cabinet. All of a sudden, Lisa Nandy gets to take over and follow the England football team.
Yeah, her first official trip out to the semi-final straight away. Yeah, very good. So there's obviously a lot of stuff going on in London as well. On Sunday for the final, the mayor, Sadiq Khan, has hired out the O2 for 15,000 fans. He's going to be hosting there to watch the match on big 16-metre screens. There was a lot of talk about what was going to be done in London about the final and where people will be watching it. Because I think if you remember last time, when the sort of delayed Euros in 2021, we had fan zones in Trafalgar Square and around Hyde Park. But the devastation that followed the semi-final at Wembley was something to behold. There was, people clambering on buses when we won that semi-final. They basically closed down central London, climbing on the theatres, and they caused sort of thousands and thousands of pounds worth of damage. But there's also plans afoot for if we do, touch wood, actually win on Sunday. Our City Hall team had a good exclusive this week about what will happen if we do win. Preparations are sort of in advanced stages at the moment for the squad to meet the King. And there will obviously be this huge open bus tour through London as well. It's going to start at the Guildhall, go through the City of London, and then to the Palace via Trafalgar Square. So we have got that to look forward to on Tuesday if we do actually win.
If it all comes home.
If we don't, then we get nothing.
And spare thought for the police officers, because the Met Police Commissioner, Sir Mark Rowley, he's explained how more officers will be out on duty on Sunday night. So while most of us will be enjoying watching the football, they'll be out there keeping the streets of London safe. And that's episode 5 of A Week's A Long Time in Westminster.
For all the latest news, head to standard.co.uk or pick up a newspaper.
The Standard Podcast will be back tomorrow at 4 p.m. Have a great weekend.